2020 has been a crazy year. We have a pandemic and an election, which is always cause for people to go that poop insane. Can't cuss because it's YouTube. But anyway, the only good thing about 2020 so far is that comic books didn't stop. They had a slight hiatus for a little bit, but they didn't stop. And there were some good comic books that came out in the year 2020. So I'm going to give you my top 5.
Number 6.
Gotcha. I had to sneak in this book and make it a top 6 comics of 2020. Also, before I get started, I want to give a tiny spoiler warning for comics. So, with all that being said, let's begin. Start off my list. I bring you the only comic outside of The Flash that I stuck with throughout the entire Rebirth initiative of DC. Batman Beyond by Dan Jurgens, with majority of the art done in 2020 by Sean Chen. Besides me just being a major shill for all things Batman Beyond, this comic has been good since it began and continues to do so in 2020. After wrapping up the story arc, which introduced Dick Grayson's daughter, Elena, as the new Batwoman Beyond and allowed Terry to get his memories back, Dan Jurgens put our hero through the ringer by stopping the League of Assassins' new leader, Mr. Zero, from sending the world into a new ice age after he betrayed Damian Wayne. What's next for our heroes? It seems like Booster Gold would like to have a word, and all I have to say about that is, Booster, leave our Batman alone. My favorite issue of this year is issue number 42, and in that issue we see Blight, whose body's about to go nuclear after failing to transfer his mind into Terry's body thanks to the interference by Ileana Grayson. And so he's on his way to the Batcave to finish off Bruce Wayne. And thankfully, Elena and Terry make it in time to run interference, and with the help of what I'm now referring to as the Bat Family Beyond, they're able to fight Blight off long enough for him to self-destruct in the underwater ocean caves. And I gave this issue an 8 out of 10.
Number 5.
Number 5 on my list is the Dawn of X relaunch of the X-Men, brought to us by way of writers and artists such as Jonathan Hickman, Tini Howard, Jerry Duggan, Benjamin Percy, Pepe Larraz, Lionel Francis Yu, Joshua Cassara, and more. In the Dawn of X, we find the mutants of the world head to Krakoa after Xavier, Magneto, and Moira McTaggart, now going by Moira X, join forces to bring a utopian society of mutants together after Moira figures out, after she's lived a few lives, that the mutants always lose. The entire line of Dawn of X has been phenomenal, from X-Force with Beast's further moral corruption to Kitty's resurrection mystery and her mini war against Sebastian Shaw, to the mystery of Vulcan, and even to this day with their Swords of X event. The Dawn of X continues to deliver and promises more fun is yet to come. My favorite issue of this year was Empire X-Men number 4, picking up after Scarlet Witch tried to make up for her House of M mistake. She tried to bring back the mutants that died from the Sentinel attacks on Genosha, but in doing so, she brought them back as zombies. And we find the mutants of Krakoa battling those zombies, but then eventually teaming up with them to fight against the invading plant alien Kotati, which were a major part of the Empire event. And with a really moving scene from Explodey Boy, I gave this issue a 9 out of 10.
Number 4.
Number 4 on my list is a little tricky. It's Guardians of the Galaxy number 6, Legacy number 168. I can't put the entire series on my list, but I would highly recommend this single issue. It was so powerful, it moved me to tears. In this comic, we see Nova, not Sam Alexander for those familiar with that character. And if you're not, why not checking out my voiceover of his comic after this video? But anyway, this Nova is the original one, Richard Rider. And after feeling responsible for Peter Quill's death, he's, albeit a little reluctant, but he still goes through with it and starts going to therapy. That's all I'm going to say about this issue because I don't want to spoil anything else, but it is one of the 3 comics I've given a perfect 10 out of 10 review of this year.
Number 3.
Getting into the top 3 now, and number 3 is Amazing Spider-Man, written by Nick Spencer and artist Ryan Ottley. My personal favorite, Mark Bagley, and many more have been doing excellent work on Spider-Man. The Mystery of Kindred was a fun ride, and now after Harry Osborn being revealed to be the mystery villain, we still have the epic conclusion to look forward to. Spidey has already faced the Sin Eater and even teamed up with the Green Goblin because of Kindred, and now after seeming like he has no other option, has now turned to Doctor Strange for help. If you aren't reading Spidey, you're missing out. My favorite issue of this run so far in 2020 was Amazing Spider-Man number 42, Legacy number 843. Told from the perspective of Gog, we relive his origin story and find out how he became in possession of the final piece of the Lifeline tablet. When this issue came out and I read it, I cried, and it was so unexpected. I had known who Gog was before this story and just considered him one of the D-list characters that Spidey who sometimes fight, like Sturgeon, the Fly, or Black Fox. Okay, Black Fox is kind of cool, but you get my point. So imagine my surprise when, after I read this comic that was filled with panels with nothing but 3 words from what is basically an alien dog at this point, that my eye faucet had busted pipe. I gave this issue a 10 out of 10.
Number 2.
Number 2 on my list is the only miniseries on my list and the second DC book in my top 5, or top 6. And it's Far Sector, brought to us by N.K. Jemisin and Jamal Campbell. If there's a book, in my opinion, that encapsulates 2020 as far as social justice is concerned, this is the book. Also, when I use the term social justice, I'm using it in a positive connotation. This book is the best book coming out of DC, and it pains me to know that it will be ending because of it's a miniseries. We follow our hero, the new Green Lantern, Sojourner Mullen, better known as Jo, as she is placed as the Lantern of this alien planet with 3 different alien races with different cultures, and they're trying to get along for the first time. They're having a really hard time doing it because it's just their emotions are involved in it, and there's a whole bunch of subtext. The book is powerful, it's mature, and out of all the books on this list, including the number 1 comic, this is the book I would most recommend people check out. My favorite issue of this year is issue number 5, and in this issue, after failing to keep a protest from falling into chaotic violence, Jo is forced to look at how the city she's supposed to protect isn't so different from her home on Earth, by reflecting on her origin of how she became the coolest new Green Lantern of the modern era. This issue, more than any other issue, talks about what's going on in our society with certain issues, and I recommend everyone check this issue out at least. I gave this issue a 10 out of 10.
Honorable mentions.
I have 2 honorable mentions for this year in 2020. They're good. I just didn't think they were good enough to be in my top 5 or 6. And those being Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky, and I can't remember the artist's name. I think Mark Chittetto is the artist. For majority of the art, it's Mark Chittetto. And my favorite issue of that one was the annual issue, where like everything changes as far as like everything. Like, I don't want to spoil it if you're like following it and stuff, but like everything changes. Like Matt's entire history is like changed forever. And the second comic that gets an honorable mention is Venom by Donny Cates with art by Ryan Stegman. And sometimes Mark Bagley. It's actually kind of 50-50 on both of that, actually. They kind of do about equal amount of work. But my favorite issue of that one was issue number 22, where it's basically Venom meets all the cool action movies from like the 90s, like Rambo, Aliens. I don't know if Aliens came out in the 90s, but like Aliens, Rambo, a little bit of Predator even. So yeah.
Number 1.
Now, taking the number 1 spot, we have the Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing. And besides a few guests, majority of the art is done by Joe Bennett. This body horror comic, which took Hulk into a whole new direction, has been some of the most thought-provoking and just flat-out fun comic since its debut. And it continues to do so here in 2020. From battling classic Marvel characters Xemnu to finding out the leader has been manipulating things from behind the scenes, using the Green Door to every shocking and disgusting scene in between. Al Ewing continues to be Marvel's ace as we start looking towards 2021, in my opinion. Unfortunately, I believe Immortal Hulk is ending with issue 50, and as of recording this video, we're currently on issue 38, which means we don't have much longer with this book, so cherish it while we got it. My favorite issue that come out this year is issue number 36. In this issue, after going gamma nuclear in front of a bunch of citizens thanks to the evil schemes of the leader, the Hulk is forced to fight Gamma Flight when he doesn't want to, with a surprise at the end of the issue that I was super pumped for. I gave this issue a solid 8 out of 10. Well, there you have it. My top 6 comics of 2020. There was a bunch of other stuff that came out this year that was also really good, but I think these were just a cut above the rest.